is a chronological resume is that sort of resume that is actually just that, in chronological order. So, Christy, if you could explain who should use a chronological resume.
So you should know that the chronological resume is the most preferred resume format from hiring managers and recruiters. They're used to seeing them. They know where the information is. They know how to read them. So that's how they generally like to see information. So, these are definitely appropriate for anyone that has, a consistent work experience that is looking to find their next opportunity in the same field. And with that being said, we'll talk about some challenges and different resume styles that can address those challenges, but whenever possible, we try to present things chronologically, which is actually in reverse chronological order, with your most recent employer being first, and then reverse chronological order.
Very good. Craig, I would like for you to tell us about these next few examples here that we have.
Well, the first example is what I want. I wanted something very simple and very basic, just to show the key points in a resume and outline, starting with your name. And more these days, the address, the specific location, is becoming optional. Especially if the company is, let's say, an hour away from where you live, and you don't want them to prejudge the distance and decide that it's too far, they don't want to consider you, where you'd be willing to drive that far, then leave it off. But put a phone number and a working email address, and make sure you check that email. And also take a look at your email address objectively, and say, is this something that's going to turn off a prospective employer? And as silly as it sounds, if you have one that says hotchickybaby@yahoo.com, you better get a different one for your resume, because I've seen it before. Now this is one where, I like as an objective, but it's short and sweet. And within one line, I know they want something in customer service management. But this lists the most recent employer first, and it also shows how to break it out if you have had more than one job with the same company, which is, of course, great that you showed advancement. So the dates on the left, 2000 to present, is the entire length of time. And then a job before that, education. In this case, they had a bachelor's degree from some time ago, and they don't put a date on it, which is fine. And then more recently, taking some office administration technology courses to keep their skills up. And then a quick summary of skills. And then the tagline on the end, references available on request. That's optional. It can be a good way of rounding out a resume, but if you're starting to run out of room, don't worry about it.
Good. So these next two examples, Craig, are something that you also shared with us. And these names and addresses are false, so we don't have to worry about protecting the identity of those who are not here able to represent themselves. But tell us about what the difference is between what we just saw and these.
There's one key difference. You see the format is the same, the layout's the same, but these go one step further, and it's an important step. The first resume showed what they did and when they did it. These two go beyond that and say how well they did it. After a short explanation, and the second one shows just one sentence under on the first position, one sentence of what the company did, and launches right into specific quantified achievements of how well they did their job. Anything with a dollar sign or a percent sign on it jumps right out at people, and it's got to be in digital form with all the zeros. That's what your eye picks up on. And the first guy, he was a beer salesman, but when you look at this, you say, darn, this guy must have been pretty good. I guess I ought to talk to him. A brief history. There are some advantages to hiring employers for hiring veterans. So he's saying he's a veteran. Just verifies he graduated from high school. Now he lists activities, and that's something that you get a lot of debate on. Should you list hobbies? Should you list activities? And I always say that's very tricky. Generally, no, don't do that. Don't list hobbies, but if you're volunteering in the community or showing things how you're helping people, that's great. In this particular case, the guy was a member of the American Legion, the Moose Lodge, and so forth, but he put it on there because those are examples of his customers, places where he delivers to, and so he's trying to show how he is not just delivering there, he's actually involved in a lot of these organizations. So
it gives them a point of conversation, right?
Yes, yes. Accounting or bookkeeping and say how you've saved money. You can be a manufacturing supervisor and say how you've streamlined, improved production times, reduced overhead, a variety of things. So it can apply to a lot of different skill types.
We have a question from the audience about if someone that has 15 plus years of employment with one employer, what format would you use?
My opinion is do it like the ones you've seen here, where they show a progression within the company, where you've advanced, you've continued to get more responsibility within the company. That to me is as good as changing employers every few years.
Good, good. This next example is from Christy. Would you like to explain this? And I had to change it to Mary Doe because Craig had already used Jane Doe. And while you're explaining, I would like for you to answer how someone can cover a gap in employment as well.
Okay, so this is, pay attention to this because I'm going to actually use I created two resumes for this person. This one was a chronological resume, and when we get to the functional resume, I'm going to show you a functional resume that was for the same person. And it will highlight the importance of customizing your resume for different opportunities and different career objectives. In this case, this was a stay-at-home mom that was looking to get back to work. And so we did cover some gaps. And how we did that was filling in those gaps with relevant things she was doing during the same time that she was raising her children. So you can see that we listed experience. We didn't say like paid work experience or work experience, just experience, because the work she did at Ronald McDonald House was actually volunteer work. She also had her own life coaching business during that time that spanned several different locations. So this is a good example that when you are trying to cover gaps in employment, and many people will say in that case you should use a functional resume, we didn't do that because we really wanted to, again, employers prefer the chronological resume, so we picked things from her experience that would show transferable skills to employers. In this case, one of her career objectives was to be a recruiter. She did have prior work experience as a recruiter, but you can see that was earlier in her career. Experienced recruiter that gets the job objective right up front without having an objective section. And then we identified, that she has, the second bullet, partners with hiring manager to identify staffing needs and develop sourcing strategies to create a strong candidate pipeline. So that's a summary of what she can do. She has strength at building relationships with management, client companies, and candidates to achieve hiring objectives. And then something that, might not fit anywhere else on the resume but might be important to potential employers is that she's bilingual. So, in many companies, that's an important quality to have. So I think, this shows you what a professional summary section can look like and how you can cover some of those gaps in a more traditional resume.
Very good. Now, we had a question from the audience about skills above experience or experience above skills. Does the order make a difference on any of this?
So, you know, the traditional order is that you have, if you're having an objective, that would be first, then your summary of qualifications. Some people, you know, having like a skills section that just lists out, you know, your skills, that can be important, like for IT people to list their technical skills and their proficiencies. But in my mind, if you're just listing out things that are like, you know, organization skills, administrative, accounting, you know, I would rather see those skills embedded in the resume where you're demonstrating that you have those skills than just listing them. So either in the professional summary section where you're demonstrating those skills or in the experience section. And then education would come next, followed by any, if you have any professional associations or certifications, and if there's any relevant community service or volunteerism. Generally, you know, if it's not related to what you want to do, I wouldn't include it. But if it is related or showcases skills that you want to use, then you can create a section like that as well.
Great, thanks, Christy. This next resume is just here for an example for you to review. It is chronological and it does cover 2 pages. So that's one way that you can look at some of the examples where they've included hours, money, the different what's in it for the employer kind of bullet points that somebody might want to